Welcome to my Boulevard. All right, so we've talked about foundational addiction. You gave a definition, about anything that helps us, like numbs us out, right, from
Yeah.
healthy patterns of life that causes destructive behavior.
Sure.
And so now we're going to talk about like functional addiction, because I mean, would you say that this is kind of the stages of addiction? You go from foundational to functional. Is that is that a stage of addiction? How would you?
It is.
describe
For me, it was like part two.
that? Okay.
You had a three-play act.
Yep.
The final act in addiction is destruction.
Yeah.
So this is part two. This is basically the fertile ground's been laid in the foundation that's ripe for something to come in, because all of the functional addiction that I was doing was to actually self-protect that little 8 and 9-year-old boy to actually feel validated. I didn't get validation from my stepmother and my dad and my mother the way that I needed to. I didn't get emotional validation, intellectual validation. So I wasn't taught how to walk through difficult emotions in life. And so now that little boy needs to have validation. He's still inside me. He's still coming with me wherever I go. I'm with friends. I'm trying to date, trying to understand how to navigate these things. There's a little boy inside of David that needed to be loved and validated, that says, I love you for exactly who you are. There is nothing that will separate my love from you. And so the functional part of it was, for me, it went into 18 years old pornography. I was like, oh, this looks really great. I feel really good. This feels validating. It's phone sex. There was connection there. As fake as it was, there was somebody on the other end of that line that felt like validating to me, even though obviously it's a cognitive distortion that's created.
Yep.
Chat rooms. I'm chatting with someone, didn't know if it was a male or a female on the other end, but it felt good what they were saying. It felt validating to a spirit that needed to know, am I enough? Am I worth it? Do you love me? These kind of core values, we all need these as humans to feel these things from our parents. And then eventually, when we are with a partner, we want our partners. But if a partner has never felt validated themselves, this is where the functional addiction, I stumble through my 20s, and even in, obviously I told that in a previous session about, the very, very beginnings of my marriage.
Yeah.
And so in my 20s, it was, work hard, work 3 or 4 or 5 jobs while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I'd be exhausted. Let me look at pornography and masturbate.
Yeah.
That's going to feel validating. That's going to feel good. I'm going to have, the biological parts, the dopamine's going to get released. The oxytocin's going to come and feel good afterwards. And so then that had to progress, because it's not something that can ever sustain the first few times of having that much dopamine released at one time.
And you keep trying to get more and more dopamine.
Yes.
Because, I love that, because, one, you're talking about it from kind of, it's like the gateway, into, and it just kind of like you keep on increasing, because you're looking for that feeling that you have.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is, it's so interesting. You're looking for a feeling, but at the same time numbing out from something.
That's right.
Right? And so you're having that, you're numbing out, but the other side of this kind of a functional addiction, and when I think about functional addiction, is that you're still, quote unquote, they're the choir boys still. You're still going to church and all that. And so just like we talk about functional alcoholics, it's like, to the outside world, you're still functioning, you're still good. It's not like no one's asking you, David, we gotta intercede or intervene for you. So on one end, this functional addiction is you're still able to maintain a healthy, or not healthy is not the right word, but a lifestyle to the outside world that still looks like all together, but inside you're numbing out, and you have this whole other life that you're having that is escalating on one side, but then on this side, you're still maintaining. And so talk a little bit about that, like living in that dual world, and that kind of functionality of that.
Yeah, so I always refer to it as a dichotomous life. And by the time that, with the next part we'll talk about, I got to the end, it was a trichotomous. I don't know what comes after that, but 4, 5, 6, you live in all these lives, you're trying to keep it all together, and everything's starting to cave in. Right.
That's exhausting.
But it was dichotomous in the point where it's like, get up, I'd work out in the mornings, have a routine, As it progressed, I'd look at porn in the morning. I needed a release in the morning, or I needed to feel. And really, what I want to say is the dopamine is being released because really what I wanted, and this is a foreshadowing for one of our other sections, is that what I wanted was true intimacy. But I was using, it became more and more intense because but what I really wanted was to just feel intimately close with someone, and not in a sexual intimacy. I mean a true deep intimacy of knowing I'm enough just as I am. I'm loved just as I am. I'm wanted just as I am. And since I couldn't.
Was that a conscious thought? Like, did you have conversations like in your mind, or is this like you looking back?
This is me looking back now. I didn't have those tools at 23, 25, 28, and I went through 4 relationships, dated a woman for 4 years in college. We broke up. I looked at porn all through our relationship, told her, like I told last week, I told her 1 pound of a 10-pound bag of crap, dated another girl. And then out of 2 of those 4 relationships, I was the receiver of being cheated on. My second relationship with a woman of where I went to school. And then I dated another young lady here in Atlanta. And then I dated another lady in Atlanta, and she cheated on me with someone that she had gone to school with. So I was the receiver in 2 of those relationships of knowing what betrayal felt like, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, but all those relationships, I was looking at porn, masturbating, phone sex. The chat rooms had gone away because for whatever reason, it just didn't stick with me. And I'm super grateful for that. And at the same time, whoever's listening to this, if that's what they're doing, I have a lot of empathy as well. And I think I want to just say this real quick to Dhati. Through all of these talks that we have, my heart goes out and I have empathy for anyone who struggles with any kind of addiction. And hopefully what we're doing here ministers to people's hearts. And I always want to be available if someone wants to reach out, because it's that important.
Yeah, and I think that's the part of the reason why we're doing this is that there's not safe spaces for so many people to be as vulnerable and as honest as you are being. And I think that is something that is killing Christianity, killing believers, is shipwrecking people's faith. And I think that's why so many people are deconstructing, right, and doing that. And so I always talk about, like, there's a difference between transparency and vulnerability, right? And a lot of times transparency is that I'll share things with you, but I'm going to show you the things that you can't really hurt. That's right. But it's going to make it seem like we're getting deep and down. But vulnerability is, I'm going to share things that actually you can hurt me with, and I think that we need to create more vulnerable spaces, and I think that is really important. And so that's the reason why we're doing this. We know that this is about giving God glory. This is about, like, wanting to set people free, the captives free, by just using, like, our stories and our testimony. Absolutely. And I think your story, especially this period about functional, right, the functional addiction, there's so many people that are living this, they're dying, they're numbing out inside, they're going home and they're numbing out, and they're creating destructive patterns in their lives. But then on the flip side, they're functional. The outside people, it's not obvious, because a lot of times when we talk about addiction, it's obvious. Like, we see as, oh, he's an alcoholic, or she's, whatever it is.
Drug addict.
It's like a drug addict. It's like, it's clear to everybody. And so people automatically think addiction in that way. But if someone would have saw you in those 20s and 30s as you were in your functional addiction, they wouldn't have said, that's an addict.
That's right.
They wouldn't have said that.
And two, what I was going to say is, so where it went from there, late in my 20s, I remember I came out, I was working one of 4 jobs, and I came out and there was a card on my car in Buckhead one night, and I was like, oh, what's an escort? And I mean, that was like Pandora's box just went like this, oh, I can pay for what's going to make me feel close. So what I actually wanted in that time was, again, connection. And it's like, it was just more and more dopamine hits. Now, let me also say this, because this came to me this morning when I was spending some time in meditation and prayer. And I actually want to look at the camera when I say this. Not all sex addiction means that people are child molesters or deal with children. And that's very important. It's a big scheme, okay? I think sometimes we hear sex addiction and think of all these things in the media where people get caught with child pornography, or they get caught molesting children, or they get caught forcing women, or raping women, or anything like that. Sex addiction can be you're having a lot of consensual sex with someone, however it's done, if that makes sense. It basically just means that the sex part of my life just overtook all of the other parts of my life, where it's like, in order for me to feel validated as a person, I needed to know that I was wanted and loved by a female, because I was seeking females to fill something that should have been done when I was a little boy, and the validation I should have received from my primary caretakers, because I had 3 of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's important. That's an
No, I
important
think
distinction.
that's a really good important, because there's all sex addiction is not created equal.
That's right.
Basically, we got about a couple of minutes before we go into part 3 of this final one. But for those people who are stuck in that dichotomous lifestyle right now, like there's like, I get it, that's me, David, that's me, Dhati, but I'm so stuck. I don't know what to do. I have no way out. Like, what would you say to those people that are in the middle of their it's functional addiction right now? Their life has not been wrecked, it's not been ruined. They've been able to manage it, they're struggling with it. What would you say to those people?
I'm going to say something that was told to me the first week I walked into treatment in Arizona. Your secrets will sink all ships. It's just a matter of how long it takes the secrets to come out. Secrets will sink all ships. It's just a matter of how long it takes them to come out. Or another way of putting it, we're only as sick as our secrets. Find someone that you trust. Find someone that you can share your story with, and be open and honest and vulnerable. And the last 3 take time. It's very rare that I sat down ever and just said, here's my story. I did in treatment because I was with 14 other people that were also there. So there was safety there, right? But if you can find a place to be safe and start to open up and share and allow the light to come in to one's life. And I'm not just even talking about spirituality or Jesus. I just mean shining a literal light into, these things are hurting me, and I know they're eventually going to destroy me.
Destroy you, that's good. And I like to always say that everybody needs a place where they can be a heretic. You know, and I think oftentimes we, as soon as someone is vulnerable to us, we go into fix it Felix mode, right? Because it's like, let's fix it, you know, but we need that space. So if you're in functional addiction, please find that safe space, find those people, and don't rush it. That they're not gonna rush the rehab.
That's right.
The rehab process. So we're gonna pick up part 3.
Yeah.